This preview card was brought to you by and provided for free by Wizards of the Coast, who should also definitely 100% reprint fetch lands in a reasonable and more affordable model than their current plans. Please don't let Eternal format die. Hello, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and welcome to my preview video. Once I got my preview out of the way, I'm going to talk about Mutate as a general mechanic and how I feel about it and some of the weird intricacies of it, explaining it. So let's get to the spoiler. It's really cool to see Wizards of the Coast giving out spoilers that are on theme or flavour for certain creators, writers, streamers, video producers. They're really looking at like the Commander podcast, for example, and the Commander writers and video makers and giving them Commander themed spoilers. So with that in mind, I'm super excited to reveal my build around draft on common. One of my patrons, Patters among others, joked that I probably just got given a grizzly bear. It's become a bit of a meme that I don't get very exciting preview cards. And yeah, it is technically a grizzly bear. And technically correct is the best form of correct, right? It's not actually a bear though, it's a dinosaur cat. It is prohibitively expensive for a bear. It's a 2/2 for 2 mana spread across both 2 colours, red and white. Perhaps I'm being mean saying it's a draft build around uncommon, but the most exciting part about it, if you can call a draft build around exciting, is the mutate cost. It gets hybrid mana, which means it's castable on both red and white decks, and it gives +2/+1 when it mutates. It's a lower costed sorcery speed inspired charge. How this works is that when you mutate, when you put this onto another creature, it gives your entire team +2/+1, but it retains the mutate ability anyway as well. So if you mutate another creature onto the body that now has this cat attached to it, this cat dinosaur, you get +2/+1 again later down the line, meaning if you're in the mutate deck, you get quite a powerful anthem or temporary anthem effect off of this. If you already had a Regal Leosaur in play and you mutated another Regal Leosaur onto it because your draft's gone very, very well, your entire team gets +4/+2. Where can I see this seeing play in Constructed, you might ask, because I make videos almost exclusively about Constructed and Cube? Well, almost nowhere, honestly. It does seem fun with any creature that cares about power and toughness in red and white. So for instance, on turn 4 after casting Untapping with Kenko Tin Street Kingpin in play, you can mutate onto him, changing him from a 1/2 to a 2/2, and then triggering the mutate clause, making him a 4/3. At that point, when you go to combat and attack, the Krenko keeps his text box, so we put a counter on him, making him a 5/4 into end of turn, generating 5 goblins on turn 4, and attacking on turn 4 with a threat that's quite difficult to block in current standard. Seems pretty good there, I guess. The next turn, we will have even more tokens in play. There'll be obviously the Krenko now shrunk back down because the inspiring charge is gone, but we'll keep the 5 goblins. If we, because it's Magical Christmas Land, have another Leosaur in our hand, we can then target it and mutate it again. But because it already has one Leosaur on it, the next mutation will trigger twice. It'll trigger the original Leosaur's mutation and this mutation. That means the Krenko is now a 7/5, and every other goblin in play has +4/+2. Put a counter on your Krenko, go to combat, make 8 more goblins. Yeah, Leosaur is good if there's a good red-white tokens deck out there in standard. There's also potential for playing this in 8-whack, I guess, if there's a red-white variant that comes out of this. I mean, this might be one of the most aggressively costed mutation abilities of all the mutation cards. A lot of the CMC or the casting costs of the mutate abilities is quite high. Although realistically, when you look at 8-whack, if you look at all the whack effects, the whacker effects, they're 2 mana. Or you get like permanent buffs off of Goblin Kings or Goblin Chieftains if you're going that route. So I just don't know if this cat dinosaur will cut the mustard there. So that's my spoiler. Feel free to screenshot a high-res image. Should be at 1080p. It's the highest res that Wizards has sent me. So take that, stick it on Reddit, and enjoy your karma, my friends. So let's talk about Mutate. Some people are saying this is quite complicated, and honestly, I agree. It is quite a complicated mechanic. Some are saying it's just like equipment, or auras, or bestow. And it's not, because it has its own like caveats and complications. Bestow, in essence, was just an aura, except at any point where it would fall off, it would become a creature. Mutate doesn't fall off and become a creature, unless you kill the creature you're targeting it with, that creature dies and the mutation comes into play as a creature. Mutate as a mechanic reads as follows on the card. If you cast the spell for its mutate cost, put it over or under the target non-human creature you own. They mutate into the creature on top, plus all abilities from under it. The base stats, colour and card name of the card are based upon the top creature in the pile. So you more than often not just put the biggest creature on top, and it keeps all the text for cards beneath as well. So text boxes apply for all cards in the pile, but you get the power and toughness of the one on top. There is weird circumstances where you might need to shrink your creature in Eternal formats or Commander, get underneath an ensnaring bridge by mutating a smaller creature on top, for example. Or maybe there's a creature in play with protection from red, so you want to mutate your creature into a white creature. You cannot mutate humans, but you can mutate onto any non-human. This means changelings are out, they can't be mutated onto because they are non-human. In addition to being squirrels, cats, dinosaurs, and enema at all times, they are also humans. How does flickering work? If you flicker a mutated creature, both parts come back as creatures, separately. This is a cool interaction and I kind of like it. It's both a blessing and a curse for my beloved Flicker Wisp. On one hand, I can mutate the Flicker Wisp to have a spray tan, a fake mustache, and a drill forward. On the other hand, I can't blow out people Voltroning this up with my beautiful Flicker Wisp if it sees any play in the formats where I play Flicker Wisp. Transform cards. Parts in the pile that can transform based upon one of the transform clauses, they all flip over, like Ludwig's test subject, for example. That feels pretty intuitive. Persist or Undying, well, all of the creatures come back with Persist. So basically, if the stack of creatures has a Persist line on it, all the creatures come back independently with a -1/-1 counter on it, or in the case of Undying, a +1/+1 counter on it. That's right, you got a pile of 5 creatures, you know, like a kitchen things with 4 mutations on it. They all die and they all come back with a -1/-1 counter on it. I'm actually looking forward to playing with some of this stuff in Commander with Cauldron of Souls because you can do some really tricksy fun stuff. The best way to remember this or understand any of these is that essentially it's one creature. So if that creature has Persist, that ability will affect all creatures in the pile. It's just that when they leave the zone and come back, they come back individually. Happens for Flicker, Persist, Undying, and any other similar mechanic that I haven't thought of just yet. Clones! Well, this is the best one. It's the best one in terms of providing evidence that wizards have stopped caring about how paper magic functions now. Clones will copy all aspects of the mutant pile. That's right. So this pile here, a clone will copy the power and toughness of the top creature, its name, and then the abilities in the text box of all 3 creatures. Bearing in mind, it will not mutate. It will simply enter the battlefield with all these abilities. There will be no triggering of the mutation abilities. Now, this might seem insane, and some of you might probably be wondering if I got this wrong. So I double and I triple checked and got people to read the same things I had read as a sense check to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Taken from the AMA on Reddit, on Mutate, Ellie, the rules manager, Ellie? I've just realised as I'm writing this script out, I'm not sure if it's an Eli or an Ellie that's the rules manager. Eli or Ellie, the rules manager of Wizards of the Coast says, and I quote, "The copy looks like the mutated creature. All mutation modifications are copyable. The copy hasn't mutated yet, though." Now, my first reaction to this was that's insane. How are we going to track that? At the time that it comes into play, it is obviously a copy of the other thing on the other side of the board. Then when your opponent mutates another thing onto it, let's say, and then you mutate something onto yours. I mean, ultimately this might not happen so much because mutation's not probably going to be played as much as this example holds out, but it does ask a tracking question, right? And I couldn't think of another example within Magic where clones struggle to track the things that they're cloning. One example given to you on Discord and on Twitter is when you copy Mutavaults and Inkmoth Nexus and it goes back to being a land with the ability to reanimate afterwards, and I'm like, sure, that's because it's copying the card as printed. In this case, you're copying a card as printed plus a load of other text on it. It just feels like a lot of tracking issues, and it does scream to me alongside that 3-mana golem that'll be on screen now that has 1,500 randomized things that require you to have a D10 that you roll every single turn. It just strikes me as a movement by Wizards of the Coast towards not really caring about tracking things in paper, and it strikes me as a push towards the digital design space. I'm going to probably do a video on this again in the future, where, potentially there are upsides to them pushing towards digital, especially during pandemics, or if the card game were ever to die, I guess. But I think the card game will be more likely to survive if you try to make it survive. Of course, you can also take a picture on your phone of the original creatures, so EDH and casual levels of this is fine, but at a competitive level where outside devices can't be used, good luck. And the thing is, I've touched upon a few of the more complicated questions that have come up, but there's a whole body more. The more and more I read the AMA and the associated synopsis of the AMA, that's kind of, I'll leave a link to it in the description below, but the AMA and the helpful summary of answers, the more and more I read them, the more and more it does become clearer for the most part. It just doesn't rock very well with me. And I think once I've played with it, it'll probably be easier to understand. My reaction this morning on Twitter was one of, It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And in reality, maybe it's not. Maybe I am just reacting badly in the same way people might have reacted to things like Bestow or Meld, or even like the prevalence of clones across Magic, because they're also a rules nightmare. Like I said, if you're trying to understand how Mutate works, the best way to understand it is to think of the whole creature as one creature. So if an effect affects it, affects all of them. For example, if you were to exile a pile under a Mimic Vat, well, they all go under the Mimic Vat. However, what comes out of it? Well, you get to choose. That's not intuitive. That's an example that's not intuitive. Nightmare Shepherd, well, you get a copy of the mutated creature that died, but only if you choose to exile all of the components. That one's part of the intuitive one, where it just works like a single card. Mutated commanders, the commander go back to the command zone, the rest go to the graveyard. That's kind of intuitive too. If you have a Theros God in the pile, that line of text still applies. So even though there are multiple creatures in there, even if the top creature has a power and toughness, similar to what Theros Gods have on their box, if you haven't got the appropriate devotion, then that creature is no longer a creature. It becomes a typeless permanent. It's wild, but the more I talk about it and the more I explain it, this has helped in many ways, I'm starting to kind of like it. It is confusing and it is complicated at first and it is hard to track at first. It might be hard to track on the board with clones, but it's hard to grok, shall I say. It's hard to process it at first. But given time, I think it's going to be okay. I think Magic is going to be okay. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Thanks for looking at my spoiler. Thanks for listening to me talk through it. I hope that was helpful. If you've got any more questions, check the FAQ and the AMA down below. The actual full-on comprehensive rules will be out in like another day. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, drop me a comment. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.